Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Kim, what jumps out at you from this list of day one executive orders? I share Alicia's skepticism about this effort to save TikTok from this divestment or ban law passed by Congress. But there are several other places where there is a hope of better government policy, I think, coming out of the Trump administration.
Yeah. Look, there's one big category that really jumps out at me, and that is Trump following up on his promise to reorganize, restructure, shake up the federal government. So unsurprisingly, there is an executive order establishing and implementing the president's new Department of Government Efficiency. It kind of lays out the structure of that, how it will function vis-a-vis the Office of Management and Budget. There's a regulatory freeze, which is going to require, first of all departments to stop issuing anything, but also to take a look for any rules or regulations that were completed by Biden but not yet published in the Federal Register, to see about pulling those back, to also have a little moratorium on those that were recently published but had not yet been put into effect by departments. I think especially because Congress will probably be looking at some of those to see about doing one of these disapproval resolutions that they have the legislative power to get rid of them. There's a hiring freeze that's put in place. There's an end to remote work. Some of that will be varied, even though everybody makes everybody cheer. The reality is not everyone knows this. The Biden administration was rushing around trying to sign contracts with unions before it left office to continue to allow them to work from home under contractual rules. So some of this is not as easy as just saying, hey, y'all have to show up again. Some of them have been written into contractual law that they do not. I think one of the bigger things, there's a couple of orders that are aimed at the civil service. One, trying to infuse some more accountability in career senior executive civil servants, which are folks that have a lot of power. And it's not always easy to remove them or have them changed out if they're not doing the job that they're meant to be doing. So there's going to be some new standards put into place there. Also, Schedule F, which is a rule that Donald Trump put forward in 2020 that, again, allows political appointees to move people around in positions under the argument that this is necessary for the efficient functioning of a government. It was controversial when it came out. The Biden team pulled it back. Trump re-implemented it yesterday. It is already the subject of a lawsuit that was filed today by the National Treasury Employees Union. So there's going to be a lot of fights over this reorganization, but he was certainly showing a lot of interest in proving that he is going to get off running on the ground with this project.
Alicia, how about the piece of this that is aimed at encouraging U.S. energy production? There's one executive order saying that the Energy Department is supposed to restart reviewing applications for liquid natural gas export projects. There's another one declaring a energy emergency. How significant do you think this day one Trump executive action is going to be on the energy piece?
Well, I think it's really important. Some of this is symbolic. I think on the energy, declaring that an emergency, that's mostly symbolic. It does allow the president some more authorities to ease some permitting requirements on certain projects. So you don't have to go through all the hoopla on the Endangered Species Act consultations between different agencies. Now, you can debate whether this was really needed to invoke the emergency. I would argue that there probably is an emergency to the extent that there are electric power shortages expected within the next year due to, in part, green energy policies, but also just the increasing demand. And you do need to speed up the construction of power plants and transmission lines to prevent blackouts. To your point, or you mentioned the liquefied natural gas, lifting the moratorium. This was a lawless action that the Biden administration took, arbitrarily putting a pause on permits for liquefied natural gas export projects on the pretense that they were going to study their public benefits or whether if they were in the public interest. Now, they put out a study last month that effectively found that these exports were in the public interest, had economic benefits for the U.S. and then strategic ones. And so I don't think it should come as any surprise that the Trump administration is lifting the moratorium. It's also announced that it's going to pull back the EPA tailpipe emission standards for CO2. That is effectively an electric vehicle mandate, and which should please the automakers very much. So a lot of these exceptions were expected, but it's basically pulling back from the nonstop threats that the companies have been experiencing under the Biden administration, whether it be a ban on exports from LNG, whether it be difficulties getting approvals for new leases on oil and gas leases on federal lands. Trump also ordered a halt to offshore wind leases, and I'm not sure I would support that. I think the better way, if you want to really nip the offshore industry in the bud, and I don't believe in targeting the industry, but I do think that the prices, we shouldn't be subsidizing them. And so I think that Trump should push for Congress to eliminate the subsidies for offshore wind and all the other renewable projects. But otherwise, I think everything he did was very common sense and will be very welcomed by most energy producers, even if the climate lobby will try to pick a fight in the courts.
Thank you, Alicia and Kim. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.